This presentation will discuss the concept of flipping the classroom and will introduce some specific tools that would be useful for someone interested in flipping a single class session or an entire semester's worth of class sessions. The basic idea behind flipping the classroom is that students interact with the content prior to attending a class session. In this way, the time that they spend in class is spent on applying the knowledge that they already have attained. New concepts are introduced outside of the classroom environment and only clarified inside the classroom. Students spend a good deal of the class period interacting with the material through discussions with their peers, as well as large and small group interactions and activities in the classroom. The theory behind flipping is simple. It's just the idea that if you're able to present students with the basic content, they can remember and understand the material prior to coming to class. They are equipped with the tools that would allow them to engage with the content at a deeper level once they attend class, so that class time is actually spent applying and analyzing the material that they've learned. The idea is that then after the class period, they would be able to take their knowledge even further toward evaluating and creating. But unless they're able to go through this process and spend the time in class applying and analyzing rather than just understanding and remembering, they aren't able to ever attain the evaluating and creating levels of knowledge and learning. So one of the other concepts behind flipping the classroom is basically this idea that students are paying not for our content expertise, but to learn. I know that this can be shocking to hear. For me, it was at first. I think we all want to think of ourselves as content experts, and while we may be, the most important thing to remember when we're teaching our students is that it doesn't necessarily matter how knowledgeable we are about a topic. If we're not able to help our students engage and embrace that topic, then we've failed. So our job as instructors, more than content experts, is really to facilitate this learning process in the best way possible for our individual students. So in taking this a step further, face-to-face time should involve engagement with content rather than simply providing content. So rather than standing up at the front of the class and imparting our wisdom on our students, if we're embracing this model of instruction, we instead spend our class time focused on class activities, discussions that actually promote a higher level of learning and engagement with the material. The second concept in this model of learning is that learning doesn't usually occur the first time we're presented with new information. I think that in my own experience, this has certainly been something that I've realized. I have to really work with new knowledge and new material and embrace it in several different ways and kind of massage it before it actually becomes something that I'm comfortable with. Um, and I think this is also the case for our students. So really, we should understand this idea that students can interact with content prior to face-to-face class time. And when they do interact with content and they are able to kind of touch on this new knowledge before they come to class, they're already familiar with some of the concepts, some of the new vocabulary, whatever it is, so that it's not the first time they're presented with the material once they're in class. And they're really able to kind of come in with this background knowledge that can be really helpful for promoting learning. Finally, flipping fosters engagement. When students actively engage with the content and with their peers in the classroom, they become stakeholders in their own learning and development. They start to care about what they know about a particular topic and what their peers know about a topic, and there's some accountability that comes with that. Research about flipping has determined a number of things, including this idea that flipping the classroom can enhance self-efficacy. It can make students feel more confident in their own abilities to retain knowledge and gain new knowledge. Um, it can cultivate intrinsic motivation. So students who are in a flipped classroom may be more likely to want to learn the material simply for the sake of learning and engaging with their peers. Um, Again, going back to that accountability piece. Um, and this is different from the extrinsic motivation that we see that comes from grades, which or earning a particular grade or earning the favor of an instructor. Flipping can also foster the development of a healthy learning community by developing relationships among students. When you flip a classroom, you focus a lot more of your attention in the classroom on interaction among the students and between the students. So students are engaged in discussions and small group activities to promote a higher level of learning that comes from interacting with the material prior to the class. And finally, it helps students to develop social and cultural capital. And I think this is related to this healthy learning community model. But when students are encouraged to participate in class in a way that demonstrates their knowledge and expertise and their own accountability, they're more likely to have that social capital that develops over time in a classroom. How do students feel about flipping? I flipped my class for the first time. My class was a graduate level social work class 5317, diverse populations, and I got rave reviews. Probably not because my teaching was excellent, but more because it was a different way for students to really engage with the material and something they hadn't done before. And I feel like these two quotations from my students really kind of spoke to that. First, I enjoyed the class format, online absorption of the material prior to the class session, and then active synthesis and discussion. This was a more agreeable way for students to learn, and it helped the material stick more. Slides and feeding material no longer work, and I applaud the professor for being on the front of the curve. And another student said, the format of the class was great for facilitating conversation, and I think it helped many of us share things we normally may not have mentioned. I know I wasn't one of the loudest voices in the class, but even though I'm usually shy and not part of class discussions, I felt I could be there. I was much more comfortable despite some of the tough topics we covered, and I think I got more out of the class because of that, and it changed my perspective too. Okay, so maybe you want to try flipping your classroom for yourself. What do you do to get started? Well, the first thing you might want to think about doing is putting your lectures online. There's a number of different ways to do that. You can record just audio through a podcast. You can record slides with an audio overlay. You can include just your slides. You can create a video, or you can even create a video with a screen capture. There are endless options and easy ways to do this, and um, there are a lot of tools really at your fingertips. Once you get that lecture out of the classroom, you really free up a lot of time in the classroom to do some different things. A couple of tips for putting lectures online. Try to include just short videos introducing each session's content. Don't think of your lecture in the traditional sense. It's not the same. Students aren't there to interact with you, so you have to lecture in a little bit different way. Present lessons in user-paced segments rather than one continuous unit. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. I think this is one of the most important concepts because it's something that I have learned, and you can see probably through this lecture itself. Um, you don't want putting your lectures online to be a process that is painful for you because you want it to be perfect. You can't stop and start trying to make the most perfect lecture that you want, because it'll end up eating all of your time and it won't be worth it. So it's okay if you have ums and likes and if you screw up. It makes you sound real, and that has to be okay. That's okay with your students, and it has to be okay with you too. Finally, keep it short and focused. Lectures don't have to be long to be effective. I am going to, with that advice, I'm going to end this first part of the presentation. And the next part of the presentation will focus on giving some more tips and practical skills for flipping your classroom.